You are listening to the Unstoppable You podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unstoppable You podcast with me, business and sales coach Tish Times. I teach professionals to network and sell with more confidence, make much more money, and be more authentic so that you can make a bigger impact. This podcast features lively discussions with savvy business and life experts and tips for building better business relationships. Our goal is to help you move your confidence needle in the right direction, shorten your sales cycle, and achieve massive success without compromising your core values. For more information about Tish Times, networking and sales, please visit tishtimes.com, and I would love to hang out more. So please hit subscribe wherever you might be listening to this podcast. And while you're there, please make sure to leave us a review. This week, we're doing something just a little bit different. I have spent a little time in the hospital and been away for a while, and I wanted to make sure we didn't leave you hanging. So I am presenting with you a training that I've done on follow-up. Yes, I said it, follow-up. That thing that falls through the cracks for most people after networking. It's something that we specialize in here at Tish Times Networking and Sales. And I thought it'd be a great idea to share with you one of the trainings. So it's not a traditional podcast as we normally do, but I think you'll still enjoy it. I'd love to hear your feedback. Go ahead and listen right in. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you all. As I said before, my name is Tish Times, and I am here just to give you some information that, I'm hoping will be very helpful for you as it pertains to the way that you're securing new clients and following up with those people that you're meeting in your day-to-day activities. I am what people would consider a networking and sales expert. I adore every opportunity to be able to speak to audiences that find benefit in the type of work that I do. And I just love the work that I do. So I'd like to share some of that with you all today. And we're just going to talk a little bit about some easy follow-up strategies that will help you to grow your client database. Here's my contact information on my social media channels. I'll give you some additional contact information at the end. If you have questions at a later time, if you want to send me a message via Facebook or tweet me, I am so excited to be able to respond to you and answer your questions. So you'll get this recording, so you'll be able to see this later. But if you want to write it down right now, you're welcome to do so as well. So this is the question of the hour. Why does follow-up fail? And I guess let me just back up a moment and say that follow-up, we've heard the cliche that the fortune is in the follow-up, but it is so very true. We've found that only 20% of all people who are in sales are the only ones that will normally do any type of follow-up beyond maybe a second or a third call. And we found that it takes anywhere from 8 to 13 contacts in order for you to really secure a new client, to complete that sales process. And so if we're meeting someone for the first time, whether it be at the store, whether it be at a party, at any type of an event, and we make one phone call, maybe they don't call us back, or we make 2 phone calls and they don't call us back, and then we give up, we have left dollars on the table, because the likelihood is, it's not that they don't like you, it's not that they are not interested so much as it is that you have not put yourself on the top of their priority list yet. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips to help you to be able to put yourself on the top of those priority lists of those people that you are encountering probably already in your day-to-day life, and help for you to hopefully be able to bring in new clients. And I know that if you're just getting started in this type of arena, or if you're have not done sales before on any level, I want to kind of change your mindset or your thought process around that word, sales. That word actually comes from a Latin word that means serve. So if we think about it in the sense of, I'm not coming to sell something, I'm actually here to serve people. I'm here to give them the things that they need to change their lives. It changes our mindset, which changes our approach, which makes it easier to pick up the telephone, make those telephone calls, sometimes sending emails, whatever is a part of your follow-up process in order to make sure that you're not leaving people wanting, leaving people needing, meaning they need what you have. And if we don't provide that for them or give them every opportunity to take advantage of it or to receive what we have, then we are doing them a disservice. So follow-up generally fails for many reasons. First of all, we are sometimes apprehensive to pick up the phone to make the phone call, meaning we've met someone, we have a list of people who come to a party, for instance. We've gone to an event, maybe at our kids' school, or maybe we've gone to a party of a different sort, or we've met people and they've told us, yeah, maybe give me a call, or you've asked them if you can spend some time talking with them. And you, for whatever reason, are a little apprehensive about making that phone call. Sometimes it's kind of that schoolyard thought process around, I don't want to be rejected. So if I don't call, I don't, put myself in that position. And so that's one of the reasons. Another reason is not having a system, something that really allows you to create a process that makes your sales funnel a whole lot easier. Meaning you meet someone and then you automatically know, because you have a system, what that next step is. And then because you have a system, you have something that kind of reminds you, or what I say, pings you to do that next step. And if we don't have a system in place, it's really easy for follow-up to fall through the cracks. Another reason might be that, we are not really thinking about what our ultimate goal is. So if we're not really concerned with, what I ultimately want for this person, I want to help them reach their goals, whether it be to be more professional in their appearance. Maybe they are trying to go for a promotion and they really need that help with upgrading their style. Maybe they're wanting to change their financial picture and they want to be a part of your team, or they need a income source that, your particular service would fit well into. So there is a goal that this person has, a thing that they need, and generally you have that solution. And so I always want you to think about it this way. If you were to walk by a person that was sitting on the curb bleeding, and you are walking by with a box full of Band-Aids, would you walk past that person and say, oh, I don't want to bother them? I don't really have time to stop and give them these Band-Aids. Or would you stop what you're doing, recognize they have a problem, I have the solution, let me do this service by providing them that solution? That's how I want you to start thinking about the work that you do, because you have the solution for the problem that so many people have. And that's one of the things that will cause us to follow up, even when we don't really sometimes feel like it, even when we're a little bit afraid. And we'll find ways to put some systems into place so we know what to do next. The thing is, we have to have a goal of building relationships. If we're coming at our the work that we do from a perspective of I'm selling something, it really does change our approach. It makes us, in some cases, feel very robotic in our approach. Sometimes we come across inauthentically. Whereas if we ultimately, we really desire to build relationships. I want to get to know you, understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then figure out how I can help you to accomplish that. And then it changes the thought processes around it. It changes the way people will see us because we're changing the way we approach them. So if our goal is to meet new people, to help them to solve the problems that they're currently facing, it will definitely change, the way that we're coming across to them and the way that they're feeling about the way we're working with them. Another thing is, we sometimes feel like, okay, I have this new role, I have this business, I have to impress everybody, I have to come across a certain way. Well, when we try to impress people, generally we fail and we end up kind of repelling them. Think about this. If you're standing in the grocery store line, you're at Target, you're, getting ready to pay for your items, there's a really long line, and there's someone in front of you or behind you, and you just strike up a conversation. Just like, oh my God, this line is so long, I didn't expect it to be this long. And then you just find yourself in a conversation while you're waiting to pay for your goods. You would not tell them, hi, my name is, and this is what I do. You would just talk to them. You would just have a conversation with them and, be your sincere self. If we think about our relationships and the way that we're approaching people from that perspective. We're not thinking about what's on the line. I have to meet this goal. I have to sell this by this time. Otherwise, all of these different results are going to happen. What happens when we come from that approach is that we come across as desperate. And I always say desperation stinks, and people can smell it a mile away. Whereas if we come with the sincere desire to help people meet the goals that we know that they probably have based on the conversations we've had, the questions that we've asked them, and even some of our experience with previous clients, now they're seeing us as a valued resource, someone that they need in their lives to make their lives better. If we look at it from that approach and stop thinking, okay, I have to add something to who I am to be well received, it'll change everything. If we realize we're enough just as we are, then it'll change our approach, which once again will change the results that we're getting. So in order to do that, it makes sense for you to have a system, because now I am not really trying to impress or trying to do something that makes me feel like I have to sell something right now. I have a system that really helps me to know, okay, this is what my first step is, this is what my next step is, so on and so on. So when I say systematic behavior, I mean the same thing, same place, same time. Meaning you have a routine, a weekly routine that involves your sales support activities. So for instance, you may have a party and you may receive maybe a sign-in sheet of some sort. Maybe you have people who filled out some type of a form, maybe showing interest. Maybe they've entered into some type of a raffle or something that you have. So you have their contact information. What is the first thing that you do with that information when you get it back into your workspace, whether it be a home office, your dining room table, wherever you're working? I have a bowl. I was going to bring it up and show it to you, but it's over there, and I'm not going to worry about it right now. But I have a nice little bowl that has a top on it. Because of the work I do, I generally will find that I get more business cards than anything else. But if I go to an event and I come back in the evening, it's 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, the likelihood is I'm not going to enter that information right in that moment. I'll probably do it the next day. So I have a specific place where I put those business cards, that contact information, so that I'm not looking for it. I haven't left one in my purse or anything like that. So when I get to my office, get to my desk that next day, the next thing is going to be that I'm going to enter that information into my database. I know you all have some sort of database, but you're going to enter that information and then you're going to know what that next step is. I think, Brenda, I told you I would provide you all with a list of some resources. When I finish this call, I will send those to you right away so you can disseminate those. But there are several inexpensive, some even free, but inexpensive software programs that will allow you to have a system that, what I say, pings you to know what that next step is. So when I enter my information into my database, what happens is I will say, okay, I met Donna Jones at XYZ networking event. She told me that she's really interested in achieving this goal. And so I'm going to type all that information into my system. Then I'm going to put a date into when I'm going to call her next. So for me, it's going to be within the next 48 hours. And then my system is going to send me an email. And for me, my system will also text me if I ask it to remind me to make that phone call. So there's not a matter of, God, I met 14 people and now I'm not remembering to call them, or, I should have called them by this time. The system is designed to make it easy for you to remember when to make the phone call, when you met them, what you said maybe the last time you spoke to them. And it just makes it really easy so that every single day, or at least at some point throughout your week, you have what we call revenue generating time in your schedule. So each day you delay that follow-up, it's equivalent to dollars evaporating from your bank account. So it's really, really important that you make the time for it and you have a system to make it easy for you. So the thing is, I said 48 hours because that's the maximum amount of time that I recommend you wait before you make that follow-up telephone call, send out that follow-up email, text message, whatever your follow-up method is going to be, and I'm going to give you some ideas in just a little bit, you want to do it within 24 to 48 hours. Most people who don't follow up within 24 hours, the likelihood is that they won't. And it's not because, you're a flake and you aren't good at what you do. It's that life happens, right? You go to your party, you meet these great people, you went to a soccer game or a football game with one of your kids, you met some amazing people, you had every intention of following up with that person. But when you get back to your house, you got to do dinner, you got laundry, your husband or, your friend, whoever is asking you for your attention. And before you know it, days have gone by and you just haven't done it because there was nothing in place to remind you and to make that a true priority for you to do. So that's why the urgency is so important. Doing it quicker, make sure that it happens, period. Not to mention, the longer you wait to make that phone call, the further you get pushed back into the mind of that prospective buyer. So I want you to just kind of think about this. You've met someone, they were so excited. They saw your catalog. You talked to them about some of the items that you all have, and they seemed like they were ready, right? And they weren't ready to purchase in that moment, but you knew they were an ideal client. You knew they were probably going to be getting something from you really soon. However, as I said, life happens. You don't make that call immediately. And then by the time you call them a week later, 2 weeks later, they're kind of like, oh, yeah, well, this came up, that came up, and now I'm not, I'll think about it later. I was going to join the team, but now I'm not really, let me think about it. Whereas the urgency in capturing that time, that moment that they're really ready, it causes you to have the best chance possible of bringing them into your team, converting them into a new customer, really developing that great relationship that will ultimately end up in them becoming your client. That's why it's so important that we do it sooner rather than later. So how do you connect? And if anybody wants to pop in and tell me, by all means do so. But what I have found with many people, both in network marketing circles, in entrepreneurship, small businesses, is that we will meet someone and then our first inclination is to send them an email and say, it was great to meet you. I'm glad we had a chance to connect, and I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to talk later or something along those lines. Well, sending that email is fine. It's absolutely fine. However, it doesn't take the place of your follow-up. The follow-up really doesn't begin until you have some type of a true interaction with that person. I know from my personal experience that we'll use that email as a cop-out because I can't get rejected over the email as easily as I can get rejected by a telephone call. Because if I call them, they can say, oh, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm not interested. Or I don't have time to talk to me, call me back later. And then we walk away feeling dejected. I want you to just kind of think about that. If we are more concerned about that rejection or possible rejection than we are of doing the obligation that we have to bring them the information, to provide for them rather the information, then we're not going to make that phone call. But if we are only sending an email, in some cases it might work, but for the large majority of people, that email is not going to be sufficient and you have to take it to another level. So this is just an idea of what happens for many people. And in order to avoid making those telephone calls and doing even our sales activity, we get up in the morning with all of our, our intentions. I'm going to make those phone calls. I'm going to get back in touch with these people. I'm going to set up, 5 parties for this week, whatever, right? And we get up and we're saying, well, it's a little bit early. They're probably not available right now. They're probably getting their kids ready for school, or they're headed to work, or they're in their office getting set up. I don't want to call them now. Then, it gets closer to lunchtime and we're going, well, I would call them, but they're probably getting ready for lunch and I don't want to bother them. I'll wait until later. Then, lunchtime is over. It's about 1 o'clock. And then we're like, well, they just got back, or they're probably, still running errands and I don't want to bother them. Then the day gets a little bit further in and we're like, well, it's the end of the day. They're probably just getting ready to go home from work, or they're just getting home and about to cook dinner. We have all of these excuses. These are self-induced issues that we create because we don't want to sometimes do the work of picking up the telephone and making those phone calls. I know you all are all on mute right now, but I guarantee you, I'd love for you to tell me if I'm wrong, because if you've been in sales for any length of time, or if you're just now coming into this type of an arena, I guarantee you've had a day like this. And if you have, you're not alone. It's just now, if I put some things in place and I dedicate a certain amount of time to my day to do my follow-up work, it'll get us out of that routine of letting other things take priority, where we're spending all day organizing our files, or we're spending all day, doing things that are not bringing money into our business. And so really look at, how is your day? What kind of, what I call revenue generating activities do you really have planned for the day? And how might you be able to re-evaluate your day and make sure that you're making the time to do these things? So when we make the calls, often we're like, well, what do I say? And how do I, what should I be doing? I always say that if you come to the call with value, educating them, it makes it much, much easier for them, number one, to take the call, and for them to even want to continue that conversation. If we're calling saying, hi, Jane, this is Tish. I'd just like you to, talk to me about buying my stuff. That's not going to get you very far. But if you come with the perspective of, I want to understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish, I want to know how I can help them, and I want to educate them on how I might be able to help them, now you've brought more value to the call, you've brought more value to that conversation, and the likelihood is higher that you'll be able to continue those conversations, and you will feel better prepared to make that phone call. Because the worst feeling is, I want to call, but I don't know what to say. And so that's one of the things you want to consider. The other thing is, I find so many people in my database, the people that I work with, my clients, when they come to me, they'll say things like, well, I don't want to keep bugging them. I've called them like 3 times and, I'm bugging them, and I don't want to keep calling. So first off, erase that thought from your mind, because repetition is the most important thing. Think about this. If McDonald's made one commercial, put it on, and just kind of cross their fingers and hope that people would come into the stores, how successful would they be? That repetition is super important. We're going to see a McDonald's commercial 5, 7, 12 times, sometimes within a 1-hour show, right? You're going to see those commercials over and over again, because they realize that it takes us time to be able for things to soak in. Most customers don't get it the first time they hear the message. They have to hear it many times for it to first register, and then for them to begin to see the value in what you provide. So I always tell my clients, don't think about it as you're bugging them. I want you to think about it as you're blessing them. Because if you realize the value of what you do, the life-changing opportunities that you actually provide for someone who maybe is not very confident because they aren't showing up very polished, maybe to their job. They're not progressing in their career because their appearance is holding them back. The things that they're putting together aren't allowing them to really show up as their best selves. And so, you bring to the table the solution for them to be able to literally change their lives. And if you think about it that way, it will stop you from feeling like I'm bugging them. And you really will realize that you're being a blessing. The other thing that makes it easier for you to feel more comfortable, and it makes it more likely for them to be excited to receive your telephone call or your communication, is to bring variety. Yes, if you call someone 15 times in a week, they're going to think you're stalking them, and they're probably not going to want to talk to you. However, if you use what we call a multi-step follow-up sequence, it makes it easier for you. You don't feel like, oh my God, I'm calling them again, opposed to, doing something like, okay, I call them, then I send them maybe a thank you card. It was great to meet you. I'm looking forward to talking to you. You mentioned that you're looking for this. I'd love to schedule some time to talk to you about that, or, you're emailing them, but again, email not all by itself. Maybe you've found out that they are a person who prefers a text message. So in other words, there are multiple different ways that you're going to reach out to them to, first of all, break it up, make it feel a little bit different, but also not to overwhelm them, and for you not to feel like, I don't know what else to say. I've already called them and I left them several messages. So when you are calling, to leave that message, because the likelihood is you're probably not going to reach them the first time. You might, but most people make a few calls before they have that connection. You might want to consider saying to them, hi, Jane, this is Tish. We met earlier this week. I just have a quick question for you. Can you give me a call? Leave it really simple, really concise, because people will call you back when they feel like they can help you. And to be honest with you, it's just that, people feel like, well, what do they need from me? Maybe they want something that I provide, and they'll be so much more likely to call you back than if you leave them a 5-minute message telling them everything that you want to sell them. So really think about that. And again, it takes the pressure off of you, and it makes it more likely that they're going to give you a call. So I want you to think about how much each new customer is worth to you. And what I mean by that is, how much money do you generally make when you have, let's just say you have a party and you have 10 people there? How much will you generally make? If we just said, let's just say $2,000, just give us a nice round number. If your average party is worth $2,000, right? And you had 10 to 15 people show up to this party, but maybe only 5 of them purchased, and now you need to do the follow-up. You need to call those other people to potentially, help them to make their final decisions to make those purchases. If $2,000 is what you're possibly going to make, I want you to think about every person that walks out the door that you're not following up with is a potential $2,000, right? So think about it. If you're leaving, you're not calling 5 people, that's 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. Really think about it in those terms. If each new sale was worth $2,000, you can put in your own number. It might be much lower, it might be much higher, but either way, why would you leave money on the table that's available to you? So follow-up allows you to recoup or capture those dollars that may not have been produced in the party. They may not have been produced in that first meeting with that person, but by having a strategy around your follow-up, you can easily recoup some of those dollars and develop some great relationships that will be long-term and allow you to have great success in your business. So I said with you before, at the very beginning, why don't we call? We don't know what to say. We're afraid of rejection. We waited too long. We're intimidated by that prospect, or we don't have a system. So I've given you a few things around, some of these things. What do you say? You want to provide education. You want to maybe ask them if you can, talk to them about a question. You will obviously have some great questions prepared to ask them. By asking the right questions, we'll know how to serve them as well. So find out, what are your career goals? What are you, how do you want to feel when you walk out the door? So asking them the right types of questions will also help you to not only be prepared, but to also know how to service them more effectively. When we've waited too long, if we've had, a party last, December or November, and we haven't made those calls, it's really easy to start feeling like, well, I waited too long. I'm not going to call them now. It's way too late. Don't think about that. Don't think like that. I'd like you to consider doing what I call reconnection weeks. And so if I have maybe, 10, 15, maybe even 50 people that for whatever reason we've not connected, I will take a couple of weeks, maybe 4 times a year, every quarter, and call all of those people. And I'll just say to them something like, hi, this is Tish. We met earlier this year, and I am doing my reconnection week. You're on my list. I'm just reconnecting with everybody who I've met this year. Tell me a little bit about what you have going on in your business or in your life or in your career. How can I potentially help you? Are there people that you're interested in meeting? Are there things that you're trying to accomplish? In other words, you make yourself a resource for them. Don't ask them to buy anything. You just really want to re-engage them to start that conversation up again. And so that's a great way to get away from that. I waited too long, now I can't call them. Yes, you can. You just have to have a reason to call them and reignite that relationship. And then having a system to tell us what to do next will make it so much easier for you to be able to, do these things and know exactly what to do next. So I said before, ask them if you have, you'd like to ask them a question, so they'll call you back. Ask them, how can I help you meet your needs, as I said earlier? And then ask them, maybe, how do you like to communicate? Because some people really prefer telephone calls. Some people will actually be offended if you send them a text message immediately, whereas there are other people who that's all they want to do. And then you even have those that want to meet with you in person. So that's another reason to call. I'd love to know how you would prefer me to communicate with you. And then obviously taking that information and applying it so you know how to best communicate with that person. This is a great formula for how you can communicate or make sure that you're doing your follow-up. It's a 2 by 2 by 2. And what that means is within 2 days, definitely within 2 days, you want to have made that first connection. Within 2 weeks, you want to make sure that you've made another connection or you've taken that relationship a little bit further. Within 2 months, the goal is to have already converted that person into a new client, but at the very least that you're still reaching out to them. So within that 2-month period, you've basically exercised all of your arsenal to make sure that you've done all that you can to reach that person. What I do is the 2 by 2 by 2. If I've not converted them to a client or made a decision that they're not an ideal client, I start that process all over again. And so once again, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, and that's a great way that when you do create your system to make sure that you put a note for yourself to call them within 2 days, and then you put a note to call them within 2 weeks, and then within 2 months. It makes it really easy to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks and that you're having that consistent communication with that person. So also thinking about how many people do you plan to meet each week? Are you just kind of, seeing what might happen? Do you have a plan for the amount of connections you want to make? I say ideally, at least meeting 3 to 5 people. You might meet so many more than that, depending on the size of your business, what it is that you're doing, every single day, and maybe even the types of people that you come into contact with. But set a goal for how many people you want to connect with, new people you want to connect with each week. Because if you're meeting at least 3 to 5 people each week, that's 12 to 20 new contacts every single month. And I love those numbers because they're very doable in the sense of I may not be able to follow up with 50 people a week, but I can follow up with 12, 15, maybe 20 people. And I can make sure that I'm doing my consistent action within that group. So you just want to continue to add new contacts into your pipeline. And as you develop a system, you can grow those numbers substantially because the system will support it and show you what your next steps are. And you're not feeling that overwhelm of, oh my God, I have all these people, I don't know what to do. So I hope this is really helpful for you. The last thing I want to leave with you before I open up the lines for questions and, maybe even get some comments from you all is, just to make sure that you are so engaging and compelling that you leave what we call a heart mark. Because we are emotional beings. The majority of your clients are probably women. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my assumption. And women indeed sell and buy emotionally. And so if we're not able to make a compelling connection with the person that we're talking to, it makes it that much harder to develop that relationship. If we're able to be engaging, have that sincere approach, really make them believe, help them understand that you have their best interest at heart, that you want to help them reach their goals, when you call them, they're going to be waiting for that call. They're going to be expecting it, and sometimes they'll even call you before you call them because of that connection that you've made. So again, we're not selling, we are serving, and we have, a life-changing opportunity that we now have a responsibility to present to the people who are waiting for what you provide. Thank you for listening in today. I do this podcast because I want you to have real confidence in business so that you can master sales conversations, network like a pro, and make life-changing income. Sometimes just hearing someone else's confidence story can be the springboard or blueprint for you to leap to your next level. I hope this episode has left you with answers as well as questions to help you begin to explore how you can become even more unstoppable. I'll see you back here next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button or the like button wherever you might be listening to this episode so that you can stay up to date on what's happening on the Unstoppable You podcast. Can't wait to see you back here next week.